Good morning, welcome back to Fujitsu Forum TV. Fujitsu Forum 2018 is underway. 12,500 business leaders from more than 80 countries, can you believe it, are walking through those doors right now. They're descending on Munich to understand the latest challenges that are impacting business and society. And Fujitsu Forum TV is about getting you the insight, the answers to how we address those issues. Now, one key issue, our future workplace, what are they going to look like? Do digital assistants have a more prominent role to play? What do we learn from them? Are holograms going to feature? And more importantly, will I ever be able to travel port myself to a meeting? Well, to help us understand what the future is going to look like, Martin Smithen, clearly I'm not going to be able to travel port to a meeting, as much as I would love to do that. But let's talk about what a future workplace will look like, because there is some blooming innovative stuff coming through right now, isn't there?
Oh, there is. I mean, I would start, though, at the most basic. I think we've done some research recently that said users still being impacted by poor technology. I think going forwards, that will resolve itself. I think users will have seamless experiences during the day where things won't break. But ultimately, where we're going in the workplace is that those users will have information and services that are around what they need on that particular day, that particular location, or that particular piece of work. So they'll be adapting to who those users are, what they're trying to do. Those services will be pushed to those users so they know when they actually need them. So we'll see a lot more around the contextual understanding of what a user actually wants, and also making sure that they can have that ability to work anywhere, anytime, any place, but equally ensuring they're motivated. So what we're doing a lot of at the moment is trying to understand how users actually want to use the technology, because the technology won't fail. So they would be making different services to actually appeal to the technology within those users, make them want to do more, and actually make them feel motivated to work, rather than just having the factory idea of them being more productive and more available. It's all about how do you motivate and empower employees to want to come to work and want to have that experience in the workplace to make sure they deliver more.
So this isn't innovation for hype's sake. This is about driving efficiency, productivity, and making a tangible impact, not just to the business, but the people within it.
Absolutely. I think as technology companies, I think in the past we spent a lot of time developing technology for technology's sake. I think things like artificial intelligence will help us in the future, but I think there's steps you need to go to before that to understand what is it you're trying to get your users to do, what is it you actually want those users to be. And that is about understanding particular groups within the workforce, actually trying to understand what motivates those people and giving them the services. It's not about just giving them pieces of technology, because again, we've worked with organisations that have had multiple pieces of technology, but they've not managed to get the benefit from them. So it's about understanding what's the business benefit you want, and how do you actually bring that through technology into the workplace.
So is the broader trend now driven by culture rather than a technology agenda?
I think that's a really interesting question. So I think technology drives a lot. So we're seeing the adoption of cloud, the way that services are being delivered changing, the expectations increase, but that expectation piece is a cultural thing. So I think the generations coming through today expect things just to work. I think there's a much lower tolerance around failure, so they expect that whole seamless experience across the day. They expect services to be joined up. If something goes wrong, they're much more frustrated with it, and they are much less likely to stay using that either application or that service. I think the counterbalance to that is you have to remember about the spread within a workforce today, and actually cater for all those different types of individuals. So even some of the older generation, you have to understand and adapt your services to how many of those people actually still want to speak to an advisor, and be a more proactive service rather than waiting for something to fix. Give them the advice and guidance they may want with the new technologies. So culture will drive a lot. I think organisations are changing in the way they think about services, so we're seeing more questions coming to us about employee well-being, looking at how we can improve retention, how we can enable organisations to attract people in by making that digital workplace someplace they want to come to, rather than worrying too much about the technology that's there to deliver it.
There's a lot of business leaders that will be watching this, and I'm sure they're thinking, okay, that's resonating with a few things we're seeing in the boardroom. What about barriers that are preventing organisations driving forward on this? What do we need to kick out the way to help our chief officers watching this?
There's probably two or three things I'd call out. One is, in the climate that we're in, we're still very cost-driven, and our customers are still very cost-driven. And while we have to recognise that cost is ultimately very important to keep the cost down within organisations that we're supporting. I think we have to move that cost mentality into a value mentality. So we have to start talking to organisations about how what we deliver delivers revenue growth to them, delivers that employee experience to them, and start measuring ourselves against those value pieces. I think then there's a maturity question. So again, talking to customers who expect, if we talk about artificial intelligence as the future, it's almost the magic box. They almost say if we can deliver artificial intelligence, we'll be a much better company, bigger company, a faster growing company. But there's a maturity element there that says you may not be ready for that straight away, because you have to understand your employees, get the data right, start putting some of those, basic processes in place before you can move to that future piece.
Problems at the right time rather than just jumping ahead.
And then finally for me there's an expectations piece, and that comes back to people expect everything just to be very simple to put in place and very easy to deliver and to work. And while that's getting better, again, the legacy issues that some customers still have, we have to take them on the journey to get them to that position, away from the legacy systems they're using today, make sure the data's right, making sure that service intelligence is coming together to get them to a point they can exploit artificial intelligence and all the future technologies we're seeing coming through.
Why are future workplace technologies so important to organisations, and how will they help them to drive success?
I think, again, some of the research that we've done that we'll be releasing today has pointed to the fact that that comes back to the point I made earlier, people are much less tolerant of failure. Staff turnover, especially among the younger generation, is quite high. They will move companies if they don't believe they're getting the right workplace experience. And we need to work out how do we make those people more productive within the workplace. So if you don't undergo some sort of transformational change about workplace services, your people will leave. We've already got some evidence around retention, we've got evidence around recruitment. Organisations who have nailed this, who are in the position to deliver this, actually can recruit the best talent. And going forward, it is going to be a war on the new talent in terms of how do you get that new talent into your organisation to drive you into different places faster. And by having digital workplace services in place, being able to give that environment for them to work, motivating them, that's what will make a successful business.
While we've got you, it'd be remiss of me not to ask about the digital workplace service strategy. What can customers expect to accelerate their digital transformation?
So from Fujitsu's point of view, we're working through the concepts of service intelligence. So that's the underpinning of how you drive into digital workplace services. So it's about understanding your customer base, understanding what those users are doing, then overlaying the technologies that enable you to deliver to them. So things like you mentioned at the beginning, the digital virtual assistants. When do you deploy that? How do you deploy that? How do you make that adaptive to the questions that are coming in? How do you then deploy new technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality? When do those things actually come to play? So our strategy is around understanding the customer base, where they are in terms of that maturity cycle, what they're ready for, and then understanding what times to deploy those new services to them to take them on that journey to the improved workplace that actually we're all trying to achieve.
It's fascinating hearing these points. It's quite clear that I'm not the right person to make business decisions on technology. My head turns to the shiny stuff rather than looking at what we really need. Martin, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's worth saying, if that's just struck a chord with you, 10:30 today, the research that Martin just spoken about, it's being revealed downstairs as we speak. The team revealing that research, they're going to be speaking to us. They're going to be surfacing the key findings and helping us understand how all of that information is going to influence everything Martin just told us about. Still plenty more to come from Fujitsu Forum TV. To remind you, we're going to be on air top of the hour and half past the hour. We're bringing you 27 live interviews, 3 keynotes, 11 o'clock this morning, the opening keynote of Fujitsu Forum 2018. The head of EMEA region, Duncan Tate, and President Tanaka take to stage. They talk about co-creation for success. If you saw our interview last evening, there's a big deal happened with Microsoft that's going to benefit customers further. They're spilling the beans at 11 o'clock, so do join us for that one. Plenty more to come over the next 2 days on Fujitsu Forum TV. Thanks for watching.